Hey, good evening. It's Monday night, November 2nd. Of course, tomorrow is Tuesday, November 3rd, and it's election day. But of course, the election has been going on for quite a while and just kind of morphed into election season, and maybe the worst way we could imagine that. And if any of the predictions are accurate, we won't know very much tomorrow. We might, but it might be, again, several days or more until we know the outcome of the election. So what this is a time for potential stress and worry about who's going to win and what's going to happen. And while I can't tell you tonight with any certainty which candidate will win, I can tell you that God's purposes will win. That the events tomorrow will happen as God wants them to happen, so that his name will be honored and people will come to know him. That's God's agenda. And God is calling us to embrace that mission and make it our mission. You see, whichever man wins tomorrow, that individual is going to be God's servant. Whether they think they're going to be or not, they are. As we looked in Isaiah 45 and we saw Cyrus as someone who certainly was no friend of Israel, no friend of God, and yet he was God's anointed to do what God wanted him to do, even though that was not his goal. Well, whichever of these two tomorrow wins, they will do God's bidding. We may not necessarily like it, but that's what will happen. And that's where our confidence is. Our hope is not in elections. Our hope is not in the things of people, but in the purposes and plans of God. So we won't be deterred in our mission by anything that happens tomorrow. Which is not to say there won't be a dramatic impact about what happens tomorrow. I believe there will be. I think there are huge consequences. But none of these things are outside of God's control and power. Again, let me remind you what he tells us in Daniel. And Daniel's in a place where the government is not his friend, and even hostile to him. He says that God changes times and seasons. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge who have understanding. God removes kings and he establishes kings. And tomorrow we'll get a window into this action of God yet again. He'll be possibly removing, possibly continuing to establish the president. What we do know is that he will not be deterred from what he wants to accomplish. And he will give us the power to do whatever it is that he wants us to accomplish. So we can have peace this night. We can be calm. Because God wants us to be about what he's about, bringing honor to his name. Rest on that this night and be at peace. Our God is in control. Lord bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Should be an interesting day. Good night.